All right, Multifamily Geeks, we are back with another Friday weekly meeting. Disclaimer that we read before each meeting is topics, properties, and investments discussed for educational purposes only. We do not sell securities. Each investor is responsible for their own decisions and must evaluate investments according to their risk tolerances. Opinions expressed are those of speakers and no one else. Today, we are fortunate enough to have Wes Lucas with us as a guest speaker. Wes Lucas provides coaching and education on topics like personality models, positive psychology, and productivity. He has worked with entrepreneurs and salespeople, as well as couples and individuals to master their mindset, improve communication, and maintain consistent progress toward their goals. And with that being said, Wes, please take over.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Tyler and Max. Good to see everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm excited to be here. This is a cool group that you have, and I'm glad that I could be a part of it tonight. I'm excited about this topic because there are two things that are my absolute favorite to talk about. One is the Enneagram personality model, and the other one is this topic for tonight. There are, how do I put this? Well, have you seen the movie Unbreakable? Bruce Willis, the first like half of the movie, I think he's kind of just numb to life. He's a security guard. He's kind of disconnected from his family, and doesn't really seem to have any friends. He's just kind of going through the motions of life. And yeah, he's got a job and he's making money and he's kind of doing the things that we're supposed to do. But in the movie, he kind of learns something about himself, and he starts acting from a place of his strength, from where his heart really is. And when he starts doing that, when he starts acting from his true nature, then it's like his soul catches on fire. Then he's engaged with his wife again. Then he's living his life, and he's in touch. You can just see it on his face that he's actually involved in his life. He's not numb anymore. He's not asleep. And it's just from that little switch of starting to act in the ways that that are aligned with how you're built, with how you really are. And it can be hard to identify that for ourselves, and especially coming up through like schools in the United States and a lot of other places where the school systems are really built to identify certain strengths. And if you don't align with those strengths, then you kind of feel like you're not good enough, that you're an idiot, or you're not cut out to be a successful person. And so, especially in our line of work, when we're taking charge of our own success, when we're taking charge of our own income, um, often there's that message that you have to be this way in order to be successful. And if you're not this personality, if you don't have these strengths, then you're just not cut out to be a successful person. And what I want to make sure that you understand through this presentation is that everyone is a genius. Everyone's a genius, and you have the power to make this happen. But it's okay that it's in your own way. Everyone's a genius, but when you judge a fish by his ability to climb a tree, he'll think he's an idiot, right? So when you can start to identify where your genius is, then not only will you start to make more money, but you'll be engaged. You'll be on fire with the tasks, with the career, with the work that you're doing, with your relationships, because it's aligned with where you're strong, with who you are. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
So I don't really know about how you guys operate, but I'm curious to hear, how do you see that this might be helpful for you? How do you see that this might be something worth paying attention to?
Who's up first?
Well, if we are, there are times when we just get so busy, we are caught up with just doing stuff. But as you said, if we stop to examine what we are doing, or focus on some certain things, because there are times we'll just get disengaged with everything else around us. So, what you're saying or doing tonight will give us a sort of a focus on where we should be going.
That's great. Thank you, Charmaine. Anybody else?
Yeah, for me, it would give me more confidence in moving forward. And I can relate to the quote you just mentioned about, I'm probably gonna screw it up, but basically, like, if you have, I think something like a fish trying to climb a tree or something like that. You said,
Right.
is that a quote from Einstein?
It's been attributed to Einstein, but no one really knows where it comes from.
Well, in any case, I don't know what my genius is, so that's why I relate to the quote.
Great. Well, we'll get you started with starting to at least have some language on where your genius could be. And if this is something that you would like more personal attention to, if you would like to dig into a little bit more to understand, I have some options at the end and some things that could absolutely help you to take the next step and give you solid actions to take on those lines. So it's more than just knowledge, but you know what to do with it.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right, I'm going to move on to the slideshow here. Okay, cool. All right, so this starts with the idea of flow. Have you heard of flow? Flow is been described, and this is Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, I think is the way you say that name. But he wrote the book on flow, and flow being that those times where whatever you're engaged in, it's like you can lose track of time. You're not concerned of what other things are on your to-do list. You're not, you can not get tired. You don't get hungry. You're just fully engaged in what you're doing. And he describes this as a balance between two measures. One is the difficulty of the task that you're engaged in. And the other one is your ability to do that task. Okay, so if a task is very difficult, but it's something that you don't have a lot of ability in, then that's where you're going to experience stress. Okay, and on the flip side, when you have a high level of ability in a task and it's not a very difficult task, then that's where we tend to feel bored. Okay, so for example, I play the guitar. I play it a little bit. I'm by no means like a concert performer or anything. I like to play with friends. And yeah, so if I was in the place where I had to perform like a sonata, I don't know if sonatas are on the guitar or not, but if I had to play a sonata for in like a concert, then that would be very difficult for me and it would exceed my ability. So that would be a very stressful situation for me. Okay, but if I just needed to maybe teach like a 3-year-old some of the basics of playing a guitar, I could do that. I could do that, decently, but it wouldn't be very difficult for me. I have a high level of ability there, so that would be a boring task. Okay, so in relation to flow, when the tasks are a nice balance between difficulty and ability, then it's this magic zone right in the middle. And that's where we can grow, where we can be engaged, where we're learning. It's not too hard, it's not too easy. And we have some flexibility there. It's not a direct line. It's not like it has to be exactly even, but this is where we can grow and we can be engaged. And so most people, without being aware of it, we spend our time outside of flow. We don't know where our strengths are. We don't know we're not paying attention to how difficult the task is, or we don't know where our ability is. So we don't know how to manage that. And so it's easy to get stressed or to get bored. And we tend to spend a lot of our time ping-ponging back and forth between stress and boredom. And so what we do is we react to our sense of stress or boredom to try to create a sense of what's called false flow. False flow, there we go. False flow, it gives us like a fast relief, okay? So when we're stressed or we're bored and we don't know how to bring ourselves back to flow naturally, we'll find ways to create the illusion of flow. These can be things like chocolate, like cigarettes, food, coffee, shopping. Engaging in these things gives us a little spike, a little boost to our energy. And it feels like you're more in flow, but it's not necessarily productive, right? Having coffee may give me more energy, but drinking coffee isn't the productive thing to do. So what that can look like is where we experience this little spike, but as we continue those behaviors, then is going to decline over time and actually have a destructive effect. So it'll feel good at first, but over time, then it's going to end up feeling worse and worse the more it continues. And that's no longer a good remedy for stress or boredom, or is creating other problems that's not making our lives any easier. So then it's like the frog in the pot scenario, where the temperature is gradually increasing. So we don't realize how bad things are getting until it's so bad that we're kind of in a stuck situation. And we're just continuing trying to douse those feelings of stress or boredom with false flow. We don't make the adjustment where it needs to be made until we're cooked. So where do you see this in yourself? Where do you see false flow? Where do you see the things that you do to try to create the sense of energy or engagement, even though it's not really the productive thing to do, and it may even be unhealthy?
You mentioned coffee. That definitely rings a bell for me. Sometimes 3+ cups of coffee a day is not healthy.
Right? Same for me, especially over COVID, being home more and just having access to the coffee pot right there. Anytime I was feeling a little drained, I'd just go to the kitchen, grab another cup of coffee, and by the end of the day, I'm exhausted and can't think straight and all jittery, and it's weird. Yeah, what else?
Yeah, I think I may just engage in other activities, like, I decide to clean, or I decide to do things off task, right? That I feel like, oh, I'm being productive.
Right. At least you feel like you're being productive, even though it's not the thing that needs to get done.
It's
right?
not that thing that needs to get done. Exactly.
Right.
You take my word, Max. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Trying to do several other things one time,
Yep.
and at the end of the day, you look around. I cleaned, but nothing looked like it was done.
But at least it's clean.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. So you get it then. It's essential we learn to detect when we feel stressed or when we feel bored, and when we're about to feel an activity and we feel some resistance, where we think we need some kind of boost to that sense of flow, where we realize that we need coffee or food, or we need to go clean something or do something else. It's essential that we learn to pay attention and notice that, and bringing our awareness to that situation, how we can adjust our energy, or how we can work more in line with our potential, or what changes we need to make to the resistance in the situation to get back into balance. So the idea of balance, there's the Sanskrit word swasthya, and it's a combination of two words: the swa, meaning self, or like the being, and then sthya, meaning aligned or centered. It's put together, it kind of means healthy, but not in the way that we tend to think of healthy. It's not an absence of disease. It's more of or like feeling energy. Those are more like the symptoms of health. Health is when the body, the mind, the heart are aligned, that the energy is flowing properly. So disease then comes from a misalignment or a blockage. And when we align our energy with our potential and with our tasks that we're doing, then we remove resistance, and it's easier for us to access flow. I think I may have put my slideshow out of line, but that's okay. We'll roll with it. So looking at flow, it's kind of like my wife got this house key, and it was, I guess, I don't know where she got it from, but it's she's a piano teacher, so it kind of looks like a piano. It's a fancy key that she had cut to get into our house, and that key wasn't made exactly for the lock. I have a key on my keychain that came with the lock. It was made for that lock. So when I slide it in, like there's no resistance, you turn the lock, it's easy to open and lock the door. And for her, when she puts the key into the lock, it's not a good fit. So she has to jiggle it a little bit. She has to adjust it to try to find the right place for it to be able to turn the lock. And so it still kind of works, but it doesn't work great because that key was not specifically made for that lock, not in the right way. Right. So by understanding our natural abilities and our strengths, then it's like we have the right key for the right lock, that we know how to make decisions for our life and our career. We know how to align with our nature. We know how to get into flow faster. So like I said, this is going to be useful with stress, when we're feeling anxiety, when we're feeling overwhelmed, especially around our work. When we feel like we're not really reaching our full potential, that we could do more, but we just don't know where we could do more. Or we're getting enough done. Maybe we're being successful. Maybe we're making money, but we're just not feeling fulfilled. So by the end of this, you'll have a chance to reflect on how, on flow and how it pertains to your life. And you'll have some options if you want to dig in a little deeper. But consider it in the terms of this triangle here. It's similar to like in physics. You got three forces. You've got your potential. You got the energy that's available, the energy that can flow through you. And this is where I'll be talking more about understanding your strengths and your alignment. And then there's the energy that you have, and this can change moment to moment, day to day, just depending on what's going on, how much sleep you got, what you ate. And then there's resistance. That's whatever force that blocks the energy from flowing. And that can be internal resistance as far as like limiting beliefs or fears or things like that. It can be external resistance as far as people in your way, or I don't know, clutter or inefficient systems. But the balance then is you want to find an equilibrium between all three of these energies. And it's in that balance that creates flow. So if any one of these is missing, then it's going to be very difficult to get the job done in a way that's effective and fulfilling. And so each one of us finds our own path to flow by how we're built and how we balance these three energies. So then the task is to be aware of how we're feeling and what's happening to us, how different tasks affect us, how we're responding to stress or boredom, to be aware, and also to be adaptable, so that when we notice what's happening, we can change what we're doing. When I feel like I want a cup of coffee, I can change to do something else that's more aligned with my strengths, so that I can get into flow in a more sustainable way. And if otherwise, we're swept away by those changes, by whatever's happening in our mood, by our stress and our boredom. And so this will give us more control over the balance. So I like this quote from Darwin: "That's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's the one that's most adaptable to change." So as long as you're paying attention and you're adaptable, then you're most likely to be successful. Okay, and so when it comes to our energy, now looking in terms of potential, energy, and resistance, we can look at it in terms of containers of water and how water flows, right? So our energy that we have, that's like the amount of water that's in each one of these containers here. But our potential, our strengths, that will determine how much energy can flow through, how much output we have. So you can see where with the wide pipe, oops, where'd I go? There. With a wide pipe, there's a lot of energy flowing, and then with a thin pipe, there's only a little bit. So when you know where your strengths are, then you know where to direct your energy so that you get the most output. And we can increase our effort, we can push more, and we can increase our output a little bit, but we just have to know that it's gonna have a higher cost. It's gonna be draining, it's gonna be more stressful, it's gonna be, we're gonna feel exhausted at the end of it. So for a short period of time, we can put in more energy to get more output, but it's not gonna be as effective as focusing our energy on those areas where we're already strong. So any questions about energy, about flow, about how we direct our energy around all this?
Not for me at the moment. It sounded great. Anyone else?
Yeah, it's straightforward so far.
Great. All right, thank you. Just wanted to check in. So now I'm going to get into understanding yourself. So the understanding yourself part, and this is where I get back to what we think about SMART. Okay, so we all know or might be familiar with this scale of the IQ scale, right? That there's a single measurement of how smart you are. It's like height, it's like weight, it's like age. This theory actually began in the 1800s. And then about 100 years ago, Stanford University picked this up and created the IQ test in order to understand how smart people are. All right, so average is about 100. Einstein was estimated to be like 150. Stephen Hawking probably like 160. And according to this model, then you just fall wherever you fall on the scale. You're just as smart as you are. And maybe you can do a little bit to get a little bit more smart, but your intelligence is just kind of a set measure. And in the 80s, Howard Gardner came out with the theory of multiple intelligences. He said there's a lot of ways to be smart. So the question is not how smart you are, just the question is, how are you smart? And so with multiple intelligences, this is your ability, your capacity to understand certain things. So he identified several different types of intelligence. Okay, bodily, interpersonal, linguistic, logical, visual, musical, intrapersonal, and naturalistic. And so here there's 8 different kinds of smart. And now if you're in the public school system, then they're going to look at your logical intelligence and your linguistic intelligence. And if you're not getting good grades in a logical or linguistic class, then you're failing school. And the message that you get is you're going to be useless. You're going to be homeless because you're not going to be able to get a job. Right. And being in the investment industry, right, a lot of the energy may be going to how well your logical intelligence is, right? How well you do math, how well you're putting the pieces together. But knowing that there's 8 different types of intelligence here, then you just have to identify which ones are your strong ones and leverage those. And it's okay to not be strong in all of these. It's okay to have your strengths and have other ones that are not as highly expressed, that are not as strong. This is how we're all built, and this is how we build teams based on all of our strengths. So, yeah, I don't know. I lost track of what I was saying there for a second, but one of the things that I think is important from what I've heard from your team and your business is how well you're connecting with other people, right? You're building networks, you're building teams, you're partnering with other people, you're doing sales, right? So having a strong interpersonal intelligence is also going to be a solid strength for you. And that's okay if you personally are not strong in the interpersonal intelligence. It's totally fine. But to be successful in this, the interpersonal stuff has to be taken care of one way or another, which means if you don't have a high strength in interpersonal intelligence, then either it's going to take you more energy to do those things yourself, which is fine if you're just willing to put more energy into it for a little bit less output, or you need to partner with someone else who can do those things so that you can focus on where your strengths are. Now, I've heard some people suggest that if it's not your genius, it's not your job. That if it's not the thing that you're good at doing, that you shouldn't be doing it at all. You should be leveraging someone else to do that. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, that's how we should work here as teams too, because there are different parts to multifamily, and where somebody is good at underwriting, or we have people that are good at talking to brokers. We have people that are good to go out and get property managers or whatever. So there are different facets of this kind of industry that we are in. So it aligns with what you're talking about.
Good, it aligns. Awesome. Thank you, Charmaine. Cool. So this next step then is going to add on to this and make it even more powerful for you. This is kind of like if you have a broken bone or something, then you go to the doctor and you'll get an x-ray, right? And that'll have like a one-dimensional view, or I guess two-dimensional view on what's happening underneath. But if there's more complicated things going on in the body, then an X-ray is really not going to do the job. You need more of like a three-dimensional view, right? So this is where multiple natures comes in. Oops. Come on. There we go. Multiple natures. Okay. So multiple natures is a more recent development that kind of tags on to multiple intelligences. And it's more about that we have these 8 different intelligences that we can be strong in, and yet those intelligences tend to be expressed in different ways. That we find different ways that we like to apply those. That we bring our value into our community in different ways. So even though having a high high logical intelligence could be a valuable thing, there's still different places that we could apply it. And this is where it's really helped. This was developed to help kids. The creator, Stephen Rudolph, he was using multiple intelligences in schools, and he found that the model really wasn't helpful enough to help kids define where their careers are or what would be a good direction to take out in the world. So he developed multiple natures based on kind of a combo of Eastern and Western thought and philosophy. And so the natures are more about how we guide our energy, where we like to place it, and what pushes your energy in certain directions, what makes you want to do certain things. So he identified the protective, educative, administrative, creative, healing, entertaining, providing, entrepreneurial, and adventurous. Okay, so while one might have like a bodily intelligence was on the list, right? Understanding how you use the body, understanding movement, coordination, hand-eye coordination, agility, dexterity, things like that come with the bodily intelligence. Just understanding how to use the body, right? It's a great intelligence to have. And if you combine that with like a protective energy, then that might make it easy to or interesting, I guess, to be, I don't know, maybe like a police officer or a bodyguard or something like that. But if you have the bodily intelligence and you combine it and you have more of an entertaining energy, then you might rather enjoy dancing. Make sense? So when you're combining where your intelligences are and how you prefer to use those intelligences, then that really hones you into where you can find flow, where your strengths are. And these are just the underlying motivations. This is how you determine what's going to fire you up, what's going to be interesting for you. So here's all of them together in one picture. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to get too descriptive into all of these. I have other resources that I can share with you where you can find out more about this. But just real quick, while you're looking at this, do you have any questions about the multiple intelligences or multiple natures, what any specific ones might be or how they might combine? All right, cool. All right, so what this reminds me of is Bob Ross. You know Bob Ross, the painter? The happy little trees and the happy little flowers and the happy little hills, right? Did you know that he was first a drill sergeant? He was the one, just like in Full Metal Jacket. He was yelling at all the recruits. He was pumping people up. He was, calling them names, and it was just, I don't know, that was his job. And it's hard for me to imagine Bob Ross doing any of that stuff. But yeah, that's where he started out. And then he realized that that didn't fit for him. He didn't like yelling at people. He didn't like being mean. He liked painting. So he stopped being a drill sergeant and he went to do something that was more aligned with him. And he ended up being very successful with that and very fulfilled by that. And so when your intelligence and your nature is engaged in the task that you're doing, it feels like home. It's like that's where you're supposed to be. And again, knowing this about yourself, it gives you the awareness of where you can spend your energy. So that where you spend your energy, you're just aware of what kind of output you're getting. So that if you're working somewhere where if you're engaged in activities that are a high aligned with your intelligences and your natures, then a little bit, I think, according to this graph here, like 1 unit of energy will give you 4 units of output because it's a high nature. It's aligned with you. And if instead you're working and you decide to put your energy into something that is not really as aligned with your natures, then like it'll take 4 units of effort just to get you 1 unit of output. And that's not to say that's a bad thing, but it's just to recognize that you're at choice to do those things. You're a choice to do something that is not really aligned with you, maybe so that you can, because there's no one else to do it, or maybe because you want to grow in that way, or whatever. And rather than expecting to have a high level of output, you just know, and you can decide for yourself if it's worth the effort that you're putting in. So this is about giving you more choice so that when you decide to do something, you know how to spend your energy to get the output that you expect and that you want. All right, so combining multiple natures and multiple intelligences, when you have your unique profile, when you understand yourself, then it's like you have your blueprint to get into flow, right? And your blueprint can look like this with the multiple natures or the intelligences and the natures. And this is going to be different from like the Myers-Briggs or DISC or the Enneagram. It's like different tools in the hospital. Each tool is for a different purpose. And so this one is for identifying the your abilities in relationship to how you engage in your work or your hobbies. So for example, what you want to major in college, or if you need a change in your job or your activities. If, for example, someone's retired and they need to figure out some other kind of meaningful engagement, or getting motivated to do your own work, because you're going to be more motivated to do the things that are aligned with your intelligences and your natures. So a good way to think about this as you move forward is as tigers, okay, as animals, tigers. So high strength MNs and MIs, they're going to be like big tigers. Okay, big tigers. And then medium strength MNs are like medium-sized tigers, and lower strength ones are going to be like small tigers. Now, all of your tigers need to eat, and this is important. All of your tigers need to eat, but they don't eat meat, they eat your activity. Okay, so for example, your interpersonal tiger will be eating the activities of interacting with people. Your linguistic tiger gets nourished by using language, by writing or by speaking. Your provider tiger gets nourished by helping others and things like that. Okay. So just as you look at this here, like there's some big tigers here on this graph. What do you think? What do you think one of these big tigers would eat? Like a creative tiger. What do you think the creative tiger would eat?
Maybe painting, or maybe something artistic, or maybe acting, or maybe something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Max. And how much would you need to feed this big tiger? Right? If it's a big tiger, then maybe like your full-time job could be in the creative industry, because that tiger needs to eat a lot of time and a lot of energy. Right? Where maybe on the flip side, like here we have a very small educative tiger. So an educative tiger would be fed by teaching others, by explaining things, by I don't know, by documenting things or somehow transmitting knowledge, right? And having a very small tiger means that tiger only needs to eat a little bit, like maybe once a month, maybe once a day, right? But not too much. So if that little tiger was, if you had a full-time job as a teacher, given this profile here, then that little tiger would be overfed, which means an overfed tiger means you feel overwhelmed, or you feel maybe irritated or stressed, right? Where if that job doesn't have a lot of creative energy, and the creative tiger, that big tiger, is not being fed, then that's going to be an underfed tiger. And when you don't have enough to feed your tiger, then your tiger's going to eat you. And that can feel like anxiety, depression, disconnect, back to the Bruce Willis Unbreakable movie of just being, going through the motions and just being numb to life, because there's tigers that are not being fed. Okay, so when you know how to match your tasks, your careers, and your hobbies with your unique profile here, then you can work from your own strengths. You can feed all the tigers the appropriate amount that they need to be fed, so that you can be operating from a place of pleasure, from fulfillment, and flow. Any questions? Okay, great. All right, so if you would like to know more about this, I can refer you to my website. So what we have available is I have a free online course. We have group assessment workshops, and we also have a personal live one-on-one assessment. You can do whatever fits for you, but I strongly encourage you to at least go and check this out and learn more about where your strengths are, what your high MIs and MNs are, and what the low ones are, so that you know how to feed your tigers appropriately. Okay, so at the website, there's a deeper explanation of each one. As I said, there's online assessments. We have the group activities. You get your personal results, and we have a catalog of over 1,000 matching careers and tasks and hobbies, so that when you can look at your profile, then we can match that to what careers and tasks and hobbies will support you, so that you know how to feed your tigers. And those just paint the picture more, so you know exactly what actions to take. And all of those are available at my website at we4john.com/flow. And so again, I strongly encourage you to check that out, because this is really good stuff. I'm so glad I could be a part of the Multiple Natures system. So having this understanding about yourself, about stress, about boredom, about flow, about natures and intelligences, how do you see this enabling you to leverage your strengths differently?
For myself, I think it's less about for me, it's less about focusing on my different strengths versus weaknesses, and it's more about getting into that flow state that you were talking about. Instead of diving deep in one or two or three of those strengths, for me, it's about getting the right mental attitude, throughout my work, throughout my day. To give a little personal anecdote, right before COVID, I was graduating college, and I was fortunate enough to go to college in Lake Tahoe. And I was spending half my day, studying in class, half my day out in the woods. And so one of my big tigers were being outdoors and recreating in the outdoors. And COVID hit. I came back home. Home right now is LA, concrete jungle, a little different. And I don't have the ability now to feed that tiger. And that's been one of my biggest personal frustrations over the last couple of years, as I've taken on this different challenging role in being a real estate investor, and not being able to feed that tiger that was being in the outdoors. That's been an interesting hurdle to navigate. So it's really great getting a different perspective on why I might have been as frustrated at times as I was in the last year or two. So I appreciate you sharing. It's just a different way of looking at it. It's cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Tyler, because the first thing you mentioned is how to get into the right mindset, right? And that's the thing, like your job is not like the being outdoors. That's a high naturalistic intelligence. That's that tiger that wants to be fed, right? And your job is not like some park ranger or something, and you're not looking to make that your job. But that is a decent sized tiger that needs to be fed. It doesn't necessarily have to be fed from your career, but you need to find a way to feed it. And if you don't feed it, then it's going to start eating you, and you've started to feel that. So I really appreciate you sharing your own experience with that. That's huge. Thank you. Because feeding all of your tigers will give you the right mindset that you need to do the job.
Yep.
Thank you. Larry, were you going to share something?
Well, I'm very curious about all of this. What if, and I assume there's some kind of self-assessment that has to go along with this to kind of gauge where you're at, right? What happens if you're trying to do something, but your self-assessment says you need to be somewhere else? Can you make adjustments to get to where you want to be, or do you give up and find something else? That's where I'm at.
Yeah, the important thing is that it's your choice. So by having the self-assessment, and the self-assessment is, we have an online portion, so that starts the conversation, but we also have a personal interaction, so that it's gauged against your actual experience in life, not just how you answered the answers on the quiz. And when you have that assessment, then you know where your high intelligences and high natures are. Now, if you're going to put your energy into something that is not a high intelligence or nature for you, then you're totally fine to do that. It's just the awareness that it's going to cost you more energy to engage in those activities. Okay, so if you're overdoing it, then It's going to be natural that you start to feel stressed and overwhelmed because you have a little tiger that's being overfed, right? You may be able to push it and get a little bit more output out of that, but it's going to take a toll. So you just have to be aware if you're willing to put in that energy and pay the cost for doing that. You can grow, you can learn how to do that better so it eventually becomes a bigger tiger. But we're starting with operating from where you're at right now.
Got it. That's good to hear. Thanks.
Great question. Thank you, Larry.
And I just want to say, Tyler, I've been on some great outdoor adventures in the LA area. So, if you want to go hit the trails, let me know.
I appreciate that, Larry. Thank you. You're right. It can be found anywhere.
All right. So understanding this, what activities can you do for you to recharge and to find joy? For me, I started to notice when I was kind of burnt out from work or I was doing a lot of hard tasks and just like my brain was fuzzy and I needed to recharge. What I would often do without being aware of what I was doing is I would go like relax, lay down on the couch or something, pull up my phone and just play some games or scroll through social media or something. Now I was comfortable, I was relaxing, but I could do that for a long time and really just kind of be dead for the rest of the day. It wasn't recharging me. And when I learned my multiple natures profile, then I learned that there are actually things I can do when I'm tired that feel relaxing, that feel fulfilling, but they'll recharge my battery so that I can continue to engage in things throughout the day. I'm not done at the time that I'm burnt out. So thinking about this for yourself, rather than going to the coffee or the chocolate or the shopping or whatever else creates false flow for you, what are the things that you can start doing now that can actually recharge your batteries?
There must be a lot of people burned out after the pandemic. They're just not able to get out and do the things they like to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, choices have been limited. I started gardening in my backyard. It's not hikes in the forest, but it's something. Can get my hands in the dirt.
My wife and I just started a garden too.
All right. I actually like it. I don't have a lot of experience with gardening, but I enjoyed it.
We had nature come to us too. We had a coyote visit our backyard and left half a corpse in the backyard.
Hey, that'll feed your naturalistic tiger.
Yeah, for me, it was mountain biking and big mountain snowboarding, whitewater rafting, some activities that are more on the extreme side that are harder to access
Right.
where I am here. So I've struggled trying to figure out replacements for that.
Right. So it sounds like along with your naturalistic intelligence, you have a high adventurous nature.
Yeah.
Wanting to explore, wanting to kind of take risks or push the edge a little bit and see what's out there.
But you got to be careful framing it in that way, because when you're in an investment group, no one wants to know that you like taking risks in other aspects of your life.
Right. Well, that's the thing. You feed those tigers on your own time so that when you're working in investment, you don't need to be adventurous there.
There you go. Exactly. Balance.
Right. Cool. Let's hear from one more person. What activities can you do to recharge and to find joy?
Exercise usually does it for me. I can go for a walk or do some strength exercises and it gives me a boost.
Right. So much more than eating or a cup
Right.
of coffee, right? Yeah, and it's healthy and sustainable. Good. Good. So if you'd like to know more, I love having these conversations with people. I love doing the assessments and exploring all of the matching careers and just seeing how people light up when the system suggests that hey, you might like this hobby, and they're like, yes, I love that hobby, because that's how fine-tuned it is. So so again, I've got it's a free online course. So if you want to learn more, I go in depth on each of the natures and intelligences so you can understand that. And then if you want to do the assessments, I do the live online group assessments from time to time, so you can join the wait list for that. or if you want to just get right into it and get the personal assessment, have the personal conversation, and dig into the catalog and see how everything fits, then that's available all on weforgeon.com/flow. All right, and I really appreciate you guys following along with this, participating in the conversations, and it seems like this has been helpful and enlightening for you. So I'm excited again. I'm glad I could be here. Thank you.
Likewise, Wes, we appreciate you hopping on. Thank you very much. I'm curious too, if you don't mind sharing, what is your background that led you into this line of work? What led you into weforgeon.com?
Okay, so in terms of what I've just described, I have a very high intrapersonal intelligence. So I like to spend a lot of time exploring what's going on inside, how the mind works, what feelings are about, what the depth of like what life is all about. And I don't know, as long as I could remember, just like to explore the differences in people. I've explored, got deep into astrology and every type of personality model that I could find, just to give me more articulation on how do we describe these differences in people? How are we all operating on different programs? And how do we have different strengths and different desires? How are things different in importance or value to us? And that's just always been a curiosity of mine. So through all different kinds of jobs and businesses and careers that I've done, I've just kind of had this side hobby until I finally realized, hey, I really just like talking about this stuff and teaching about this stuff and having these conversations. And so I built this business as my own full-time thing. So I can help people understand themselves. And I also feed my tiger by getting to dig into the intrapersonal a little bit more.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
I got one for you, Wes. So I feel like, I'm older now. I'm one of the older guys in the call. Maybe I'm older than Larry. I'm not sure. But, I feel like my whole life I've sort of gone in and out of trying to get closer and closer to the things I really love and the things I do well and the things I get paid well for type of thing. This sort of, trifecta or trinity of the holy trinity of what makes me happy. But I feel like, I've taken lots of assessments. I've done most of them. And I feel like at times I've been in there and then somehow I either drift away or I move away from it or I get involved in other activities. And I'm just wondering if maybe you've seen someone like me who kind of feels like he's been searching his whole life and kind of getting close, but not really ever just sort of drilling down on the nuts and bolts like I think I want to, right? Does that sound familiar to you? And if you had a guy like me, what do you do? Or what's it? How's it go?
Right. I'm very familiar with that. I've had a lot of the same experiences. And I mean, there could be different reasons behind it. So I'd be really curious to see what your multiple natures profile is, because that would inform either you're not operating in where your tigers need to be. Maybe you're putting the financial requirement onto it. So it's lovely when you can find the things you're interested in, that you're good at, that make you money. But sometimes I have a friend who loves rock climbing, and his business is something totally different. But he loves rock climbing. He likes taking his friends out, teaching them how to rock climb. Just, he just talks about it all the time. He's very passionate about it. So people have told him, hey, you should open up a business where you take people out to go rock climbing. And he's thinking, that's the worst thing I could possibly do, right? Why would I want to attach my income and liability and responsibility onto this thing that I love doing, right? And so maybe that's not necessary for you to find something that fits all three. Maybe it's okay to have a bunch of sporadic things that aren't really related to each other that you just engage in sometimes.
I've known some computer
curiosity and exploration is really the important thing there. It's because also part of it of like finding something, trying it for a little bit, and then learning enough about it that you're ready to move on. Like that's okay for that to be part of the process.
Yeah. I've known some computer programmers who on the weekend need to go jump out of a plane just to keep everything in balance.
Right. Yeah, I know a lot of people like that.
Okay, awesome. So, other questions? Sorry, Tyler. Button in here.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Take over by all means.
I thought I
Wes,
saw Charmaine's mic pop up, but I guess I don't know. Do you have anything to say, Charmaine?
Not really.
Okay.
Wes, will you take us? Will you turn your screen back on again? And if you're able, you want to go to your website and kind of show us where it is, and maybe where the click here for the free course / assessment is, or how that works. Maybe that'd be helpful. I feel like we're gonna all want to go do that. So
Yeah.
if you guide us a little bit more, it'd be a little bit maybe smoother for us.
All right. I've made it really easy for you.
Okay, that's important for me.
So when you go to weforgeon.com/flow, that takes you to this page here, where you got the links at top. If you want to see the rest of my website, you're totally free to. But you've got these three options here, where the first one is the on-demand course. So it's already pre-recorded. All the information is there. That'll get you just a deeper explanation. And I describe each of the intelligences and the natures. So that's the first one on the left. The middle one is the group event. I just did the one for teens last weekend, and I don't have the next one scheduled. But you can absolutely join the waitlist for that and be notified once the next date is posted. That will likely be another online event, so more people can attend. And then the one on the right is the personal assessment and consultation, where we just spend private time digging into your unique profile, and that's where we can really browse everything in the catalog.
such a deal. Cheaper than an hour with a therapist.
Right? Yeah,
Totally.
so I made that page just to make it easy for you guys today, because my website was not set up to make this simple. It's got a whole lot of other information.
All right, that's awesome. I appreciate that.
Very much a side tangent here, or comment, but I really enjoy your logo. I'm assuming that you developed that yourself specifically for the business when you're putting everything together.
Yeah, well, I'm not like a graphic designer, but I found the image somewhere else and colorized it and kind of changed some of the shading to make it my own thing.
Yeah. Did you use any sort of like a freelancer through like Upwork or Fiverr? The reason why I ask is because I'm simultaneously trying to develop my own. So if you have any tips, that would be greatly appreciated.
No, actually, what I did is I found one of the free logo generation sites, and you just kind of put in some words, and you can browse through some images, and they'll give you different coloring and layouts and stuff like that. And so they make the process really easy. So I played around with that until I started to get a feel for what I wanted and how I wanted it to look. And then I went into my own program and created it myself rather than buying the logo that they generated.
Got it.
So, and then I was able to tweak it to make it a little bit more mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, unless anyone else has any other comments, questions, the end of meetings, we usually do a rate and wrap. We rate the meeting, not the speaker, on a scale of 1 to 10. And we ask for anyone, I believe, under an 8. Rates at 7 or below, or just to provide a little bit of commentary in terms of what can be improved upon in future meetings. So unless I'm missing anything here, Max, you're skipping. We'll segue over to our Google Doc here, give a rating, and then hop back onto the video and share.
All right, I'll start us off. I'm a 10.
I'm a 10 here too. Or I should say the meeting topic was a 10.
Yeah, I said I'm a 10. That's not really true. I see what you're saying there, Larry.
Maybe a 9.5, Max.
I give it a 10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 9.5.
All right, who are we missing?
Charmaine, if you're still there, you're on mute. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the meeting.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Yeah,
No worries.
thank you for 9.5 also. Thank you so much, Wes. Yeah, good info, and I'm definitely going to rate myself with this website that you have.
Great. I'm so glad. Well, thank you, everyone. I rate this a 9 as well. I really enjoyed this, and I just wish there was more people. But this was fun to talk to you guys.
Where are you located, Wes? What part of the country?
I'm in Southern California. I'm in Orange County.
Oh, so you can go on a hike with Tyler and I. Huh.
Yeah.
And Matt.
Sounds-
I don't like hiking. I don't know what it is, but my dad would make us hike to Mount Wilson like once a year. We'd go to Mount Wilson, stop at Henniger Flats, and have lunch, and then go all the way to the top. And sometimes we'd have somebody pick us up at the top. And I never liked those trips. My family just loved it. Does that sound exciting, Tyler? Is that?
It's funny. I remember the same thing from my childhood. Family dragging me out, not wanting to go. And then at some point in my 20s is when it just clicked, But yeah, you're not alone there.
Yeah.
We'll get you an airplane ride to the top.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Thanks so much, Wes. And I love that you created that special page. That's what you're telling us. You created that special page/flow for us. So I appreciate that so much. And by the way, we send this out to our Geek Group members, and we put it on YouTube also. So I think for us, it's beneficial, and maybe you'll see some other interest from that too. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Wes. Everybody have a great weekend.
Have a
I
good
know.
night. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye-bye.